in all the senses. All right. Anyway, folks, I got basically one topic for today's stream because honestly, I have had a day full of things that I'm not going to talk about, but that filled me with anxiety. So, really, I want to go through a video with you all today about contraception. Now, if you guys remember, I did a video a little while ago about the GOP's secret war on contraception. Essentially, like, pointing out that 90% of Americans, like, across the board, both Democrat and Republican, support contraceptive rights. However, the GOP, in an effort to appeal to its evangelical base, is kind of shamefully attempting to undermine your ability to get contraceptive health care. The Some More News video? No! We're going to be debunking a Sydney Watson video. Now, Sydney Watson is a lady who's been on The Blaze for a while. I think we might have talked about her very briefly like a year or two ago. I believe she was the one who interviewed Nick Fuentes, and basically made fun of him for being an incel. And she put out, I just learned the other day, she put out a 30-minute long video titled "How Birth Control Destroyed a Generation of Women." And, you know, I figure we're gonna talk about it. 'Cause, oh boy. And yeah, I just think that this is a small component of a much larger conservative movement dedicating itself to trying to essentially rob people of one of their fundamental rights. You know, the right to bone without the government looking in through your window and being like, "Oh, you aren't doing it the right way." Okay? No one wants that. Conservatives don't want that. Leftists don't want that. Liberals don't want that. Nobody wants the government to be peeking in through the window while they're boning to tell them what they can and can't do. Okay? We in that GOP Secret War on Contraceptive video, which you can find over on my YouTube channel, we saw an ad essentially describing, showing that exact scenario where the big government is looking in through the, at the bedroom of two people boning. It was a very, very good ad. But I don't know. I'm just curious. It's strange how, as the conservative movement in America has increasingly pushed anti-contraceptive measures, laws, etc., it's interesting to me that simultaneously a lot of these right-wing mouthpieces have started talking about how dangerous contraceptives are. How really, when you think about it and squint your brain a little bit, contraceptives are destroying women. America cannot be a theocracy. It's literally against the U.S. Constitution. Tell fanatical Christian fundamentalists that, because they have an entire political movement in America called Christian nationalism. And we have members of Congress who openly identify as Christian nationalists. And we have even more on the state level in various states like Wisconsin and North Carolina who identify as Christian nationalists. So, again, this is... It doesn't matter if the text of the Constitution says we can't be that. They're still going to try and pass laws to that effect. I love living in a religiously fascist country. Well, the good news is of ECC TV, we're not in a religiously fascist country yet. Just have a lot of people here that are trying to make it a religiously fascist country. So, anyway, I figured we would pop into this. Now, keep in mind, I have not pre-watched this at all. I'm going in firmly in my belief of two things. One, birth control has not destroyed an entire generation of women. And two, and because I looked at like the thumbnail or the video page for this, and was like, oh, what is she advertising? Two is that she's trying to sell people essential oil inhalers, and now I'm not a doctor, but that seems really unwise. Don't inhale essential oils. Your lungs are made for oxygen, not oil. I don't know how to put that in more concrete terms for you, but like it's not good for you to put oil in your lungs. It doesn't matter if it's natural oils or not. You know what else is natural? Tobacco. Tobacco is natural. It's still not good to put it in your lungs. We actually have discussed this a lot as a worldwide scientific community and come to the conclusion that inhaling tobacco is just not good for your squishy insides. Yeah, lavender scented bronchitis. Oh god. Look, if you want essential oils, they smell great. You know, like put a diffuser in your house or something, but don't just like puff it directly into your lungs. The same way you shouldn't just like inhale all of the smoke from a campfire, you probably shouldn't inhale all of the diffusive vapor from a diffuser. Okay, that's just general rule of thumb. Oh goodness. Yeah. So anyway, I'm interested to see what. Oh, also apparently she's a doctor. I guess she is a supposedly a doctor. But I don't know. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say she's not a very good doctor. Anyway, let's take a look here. Is she though? No idea. That is muted.
You may have clicked on this video ready to fight me, but please do not.
I'm ready to fight you though.
Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Foom. Now, I've really wanted to make this video.
Oh, I mean, okay. She says she's a doctor on Twitter, but I don't know if that's a joke or not. That could be a joke.
For quite a long time, but never really felt like the conversation was on the table, for we've all been preoccupied elsewhere.
Hi, today would be day 500 of being a girl.
But recently, I happened upon an article titled "Conservative Influencers Are Pushing an Anti-Birth Control Message," and I thought, yes, now it feels like the right time. The article outlines several commentators and personalities, both male and female, who have made comments about the negative effects of hormonal birth control. And just to be clear, yes, there are multiple types of contraceptives. Some are hormonal and some are not, but I specifically am talking about the pill. And we'll be using a bunch of terms interchangeably, like oral contraceptive, or the pill, or the birth control pill, or hormonal birth control pill. And I'm sorry if that's at all confusing or not.
Is she doing like an accent? Is she like trying to like I'm trying to figure out if she's like putting on like an accent or what's going on here.
Scientific. But it's too late to do anything about it now. The article also says that mentioning the consequences of taking the pill will instill fear in women who could otherwise benefit from this medication. It also links to—
Okay, wait a minute. Let's not pretend that Steve Bannon, you know, a half moldering corpse of a man, is talking about the risks of hormonal birth control out of a concern for women's health. I don't believe that that I don't believe that Steve Bannon is overly concerned with women's health. I'm just gonna go out on a limb there. Was that clip of Dylan Mulvaney just not so subtle transphobia? Yes, actually. Yes. Also, just to provide like an additional bona fide for Sydney Watson here, let me just pull up real quick. Thought I had it ready to go. Do. Here we go. Just pulling this out. Do. Ah, yes. Here we go. Anyway. Oh, look. It's Sydney Watson. I should add, too, some of this comes from illegal immigration and indoctrination in the education systems. A certain someone once said, "He alone who owns the youth gains the future." And he was just about right. Now, does anyone want to take a stab in the dark on who Sydney Watson was quoting? Anyone want to take a stab in the dark? Was it Hitler? It was Hitler! You're right! It was Hitler, everybody! It was Hitler! Oh my goodness! So, I don't know. Just a certain someone named Adolf Hitler. Anyway, moving on.
Another article from February by Media Matters that directly goes after the comments of Alex Clark from Poplitics, who said that the pill is poison and her objective is to get women off of it. I think one of the primary problems with this topic is that people try to paint it as a left-wing versus right-wing issue, which would explain all the angry articles I found about it. And that's largely because some groups view contraception, just as a general rule, as wrong and or sinful and or bad. There is also a fear that contraception will be next on the chopping block as far as other discussions around pregnancy have gone. But here's the thing. I don't view this as a sides of the aisle issue. And I believe that all women, regardless of where they sit on the political spectrum, should have an understanding of what they're putting in their body and what it inevitably will do to them. And
What it will inevitably do to their bodies. So, just gotta throw this out there. This is needless fear-mongering for hormonal birth control. Again, this would be the equivalent of being like, look, I just think people need to make informed decisions about whether or not to use aspirin. I'm just very concerned about the effects of aspirin. And just like, sorry, like, yes, all medication has side effects. In fact, every decision at every moment of your life has side effects on your body and your health. Did you know that? Whoa. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. But what's interesting about these conservative, far-right, I guess, exposés about contraception and, like, its dangers is that it's really weird how they just suddenly start a coordinated blitz campaign across the entirety of conservative media, talking about how, hey, actually, birth control's really dangerous, you know? It's so dangerous. You know, look, we're not saying we want to outlaw it. We're just saying it's so dangerous. You know, there are inevitable consequences to your body. Are we saying it's poison? No. Saying it's poison is too far. And yet, it will have inevitable consequences.
Most importantly, I believe in choice. If the pill is the right choice for you, then so be it. But by the same token, I also believe in making informed choices. And unfortunately—
And you know what? Credit to Sydney Watson. That is a good position to have, actually. What she just described is a good position. Which is why I don't know how many times I'm gonna have to say that in this video. Yeah.
In other news, Hell closed its doors today. A spokesman for Hell said, "Hell is bad enough without these MAGA idiots. You figure out what to do with them."
Oh, okay. Thank you, Catalina Gearbox. I do want to say, what's interesting is that Sydney Watson says, "Oh, well, I believe in choice." That's interesting. Is Sydney Watson going to come out against, you know, I don't, you know, how about Justice Clarence Thomas? Who very recently, within the last month, suggested that the fall of Roe v. Wade now opens the door for things like banning contraception or gay rights, rolling back the court on these things. Keep in mind, it wasn't that long ago that it was actually illegal for women to use contraception. It only changed relatively recently, within living memory. And the first court case to decide that was, well, actually, it's okay for married women to use contraception. It's okay for married women to use contraception before another court case opened it up to all women. But anyway, let's keep going with the idea in mind that there are people alive today who wouldn't have been able to get contraception until their 20s because of laws passed specifically to bar women from getting contraceptives.
For a lot of us, the informed part was left off the table when it came to doctors forcing hormonal birth control onto us as teenagers without properly explaining, or explaining at all, the long-term side effects and overall consequences of taking this medication.
Okay, so she just said doctors are forcing hormonal birth control on teenagers, which I'm gonna press X to doubt on that one. I don't think that there are doctors who are trying to push hormonal birth control on teenagers. And the reason I say that is, like, first of all, that would be very super illegal. And second of all, how do I put this? There's not money in doing that. There's literally no benefit for doctors to do that. Birth control pills, hormonal birth control, is like one of the cheapest drugs on the planet. It's not like they're being paid the big bucks by big estrogen, you know? That's not happening. By forcing, does she mean letting people know it's an option? Yes. By letting people know that hormonal birth control is an option, she's essentially saying, well, the teens are being forced onto it.
So yeah, thanks for that.
Why must you fail me so often?
Also, I've talked to doctors about medication before. Doctors are very willing and often preempt new medications by talking about the side effects. In fact. So, yeah. Yeah, in the US, it is $9 a month to be on hormonal birth control. There's not big money in that, guys.
So that's what we're going to talk about today. The birth control pill and the many side effects and long-term consequences of taking it. Something I just want to make note of as well is that although, as per usual, I will try to be as even-keeled about this as possible, I do have some personal experiences here that do color my opinion, and I have a vested interest in this. That also said as well, this is a massive...
Also, again, the idea that big pharma is trying to hide the side effects from you is in of itself like a conservative conspiratorial like idea, right? I mean, like, for fuck's sake, when you like Google side effects of birth control pills, just like first result, Brown University has an entire page on like, hey, here are all the things that could happen over time. Here are some of the rare but serious side effects. Oh my goodness, there are so many. And you know what? Have you guys ever listened to any commercial about any type of medication? Every medication has those. Every single goddamn one.
Topic. I definitely won't be able to get to everything that relates to it, so just bear that in mind that this is by no means an exhaustive video. It is just an entry in...
No, see, boiled peanuts, what happens when you go to the doctor in America is you go to the doctor and you're like, hello, I would like pills. And the doctor's like, pills? And then you're like, pills. And the doctor's like, pills. And then they just hand you a random grab bag of pills, and they don't tell you anything about them. And then you go home and you just play essentially Russian roulette with pills. That's that's the healthcare experience in America. It's true. It's true. My partner just said that sounds better than the real healthcare system because a lot of people just don't get medicine. Yeah, the system I described does actually give you medication, which you know, would be an improvement. I inadvertently made a case against myself. Damn it. I don't know, it's giving, my doctor explained the side effects and I didn't really listen. Yeah, I mean, marking that is kind of what it sounds like, right? Like, I didn't know that smoking would give me cancer. I know that they print a Surgeon General's warning on every single pack of cigarettes, but I didn't really look at it. I'm sorry, guys.
Into this topic, and I'm sure that there are lots of other resources out there that you can go investigate if you want more information. Also, shout out to the lads who are gonna watch this entire video, even though you don't have ovaries or a womb, and this doesn't affect you, but you just...
It's me, I'm lads.
Want to be involved. You're cute. So without further ado, before you once again board my hell gondola and we sail down into the depths of sadness once again, let's hear from today's sponsor, Fume. It is true. Quitting your bad habit can be very hard. There's the suffering of cold turkey, the annoying...
You might be asking me, why are we watching this ad? And the reason is, I think it kind of undermines her entire argument that on this video about the very real and severe side effects of hormonal birth control. She's hawking a product that allows you to inhale essential oils into your lungs.
Annoying advice from friends and family. I don't think rubbing salt on my face will help. And the moodiness. Oh, the moodiness.
You are wet, sir. Get away from me.
But the good news is, it doesn't have to be this way, thanks to Fume. Fume is an award-nominated device designed to help with any hand-to-mouth habit. And because Fume is not a vape, it has no heating components. So instead of using harmful chemicals, it uses flavored air. Fume comes with an adjustable...
Yes, don't ask what the flavors are made out of. Definitely not made out of chemicals.
Airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets to occupy fidgeting fingers. This is great for de-stressing and managing anxiety, you know, rather than handling any moodiness this way.
Does all your neediness make you happy? Because it makes me unhappy.
And in addition to Fume's normal Yummo flavors, they have just released 3 new additions: orange vanilla, raspberry lemon, and sparkling grapefruit. Just pop these cores into your Fume.
No chemicals in those. Don't ask what they're made out of, because it's not chemicals.
Inhale and you're good to go. So if you also want to break your bad habit, then head over to tryfume.com/Sydney, click the link in the description, or scan the QR code on screen. And of course, don't forget to use code Sydney for 10% off when—
Look, chat. I think Big Pharma could learn a lot from this one. Big Pharma has been tricking a lot of people by talking about side effects of various chemical compounds. But what if they just told people that those weren't chemical compounds? Those were actually just flavors. What if it's just estrogen flavored? It doesn't actually have any chemicals in it.
when you get a journey pack. In 2019, a psychologist called Sarah Hill gave a TED Talk about the effects of the birth control pill on the female brain. During her talk, she asked the audience how much they actually know about the pill, outside of the normal talking points about weight gain and increased risk of stroke. It's a good question that a lot of people, men and women, probably don't have a good answer to, and it's especially meaningful for ladies who have been taking this medication for years and years. What do you actually know about this thing that you take every day that stops your period and largely prevents pregnancy? As Dr. Hill points out, even asking the question feels risky to a lot of women. Thinking critically about—
Does it feel risky? Because, again, you can just Google birth control pill side effects, and, like, you get a bunch of different results from the Mayo, from Planned Parenthood, from Brown University, from the Cleveland Clinic, from Kids Health, from the National Institutes of Health. Like, it's not hard to ask the question. It's not. The information is readily available to you. I don't know, it seems too hard to find true.
About hormonal birth control feels like a slippery slope to allowing it to be outlawed again, as it has been throughout history. But the alternative isn't much better. Women shouldn't be expected to take a medication daily while not fully comprehending what it is doing to their bodies and their brains.
Okay, but no one is expecting women to take hormonal birth control. No one is out there being like, ah, yes, my expectation is that you are on hormonal birth control. Like, what? That's crazy. Ah, yes, it is my expectation that you have had, that you have had, your testicles fiddled with, so that you can no longer impregnate me. Like, what? No one has that expectation. What the actual fuck? Yeah, no. Again, what's interesting about this video, right, and what we're going in here, kind of trying to demonstrate, is that you can have a factual video, or even relatively factual, because we are nitpicking this to death. But the issue here is the framing of all of these issues, you know? It's very similar, by the way, to how anti-trans individuals frame HRT or puberty blockers. It's also very similar to how anti-vaxxers frame vaccines. You know, they frame their vaccine skepticism. So they will use, occasionally, or often even, actual information, but the framing will be toxic to the idea. It will lead people away from the conclusion that actually this is a relatively safe medication, you know? Which I think is worth exploring here.
Brains. But that's exactly what the current rhetoric around this topic has achieved.
Yeah, exactly. It's the whole kernel of truth thing, Entrama. Exactly. these people will kind of coat and frame a kernel of truth as like the entirety of the issue, and that will in turn make it even easier to bring in new recruits, right? Because they'll be able to point at, well, this is true, you can look that up. And then someone will be like, wow, that is true. I did look it up. It's true. That must mean everything else is true. That must mean the framing is correct as well. And it's just like, no. No. The only proper way to contextualize and frame hormonal birth control is to say, hey, it has side effects. You should know what the side effects are. You should know the side effects of every medication that you're taking. But to come to the conclusion that this is dangerous for the vast majority of people to take is ludicrous. It's ludicrous. The same way looking up vaccine side effects. That could be very relevant if you're somebody who is allergic to, a handful of compounds used in some vaccines. But for the vast, 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 vast majority of people, you do not need to be afraid of vaccines, and it doesn't mean we need to stop taking vaccines. Yeah, it's a very common tactic, especially among the conspiratorial right. When we talk and we look at different far right conspiracies, or even left leaning conspiracies that inevitably veer to the right, it starts with like a kernel of truth, like, hey, that thing was weird, right? Or like, hey, the assassination of JFK was pretty weird, right? And then from there, like, which, yes, it was. And then from there, it just veers off into many different crazy directions. And I don't think that this video is that different.
Side note, you want to know what's even worse than all of that? Us ladies are out here trying to investigate serious issues that affect our bodies, and the clowns who are writing about it refer to us as people who menstruate. Wow, how about I take the time to show you how to menstruate out of your face?
That's because there are some men have wombs and uteruses, and they menstruate. It's not a hard concept. Yeah, again, she is very transphobic. She works for The Blaze, Chad.
When I punch it. No, but real talk. How are you gonna talk about problems that affect me as a woman when you don't believe that women are women?
That's literally not the purpose of the phrase. The purpose of the phrase is to identify that there are people who identify as men who might still have uteruses and the different biological functions that are typically associated with women, but by using broader language, you can include them in various policy decisions, healthcare decisions, etc., that then benefit more people who need the healthcare that's being provided.
Please explain. Now, while we tend to think of birth control as a modern invention, the reality is that this practice isn't exactly new. Methods for controlling contraception have been recorded as early as ancient Egypt, and one could even argue it appears in the Bible. The ancient Egyptians.
This is interesting because remember like 5 minutes ago when she said she was going to be talking about hormonal birth control? And that was invented in 1960 and not in ancient Egypt. What was invented in ancient Egypt were a variety of other contraceptive methods, like condoms and such. But interesting to veer off of what you established as the primary topic so soon.
Used plants and honey and crocodile poop from stopping the little swimmies from going where they weren't wanted. While the Bible just kind of tells you to go on and pull out. Actually, it doesn't really tell you to do that. It kind of describes that as a waste. It's a waste. As time wore on and people became less interested in putting crocodile feces in their nether regions, other forms of contraception were discovered. Cycle tracking, womb veiling, and prolonged breastfeeding are well documented in the United States. In 1873, a social Puritan named Anthony Comstock, which is bit of an ironic name there, successfully lobbied for laws that made devices.
Is she saying it's ironic because his... I don't understand the irony. That is a funny name. It's not that funny, though. Okay, whatever.
Is used for the prevention of conception, among other things, illegal. By 1914, although women's rights advocates had began protesting anti-contraception laws, it wasn't until the massive rise in American soldiers returning home with venereal diseases during World War I that the role of birth control came back into public discussion in a meaningful way. By 1920, while anti-contraception laws were rarely enforced, they were still on the books. And it wasn't until the 1950s that a suffragette philanthropist called Catherine McCormick funded the development of the first form of the modern birth control pill. Modern birth control pharmaceuticals in the United States hit the market in the 1960s, after a long tumultuous legal process, where the Supreme Court...
Yeah, I understood it, Archangel. It was just not a great joke. It was like a 2 out of 10 for me.
Court ruled it was unconstitutional to prevent married couples from using contraceptives. The case Griswold v. Connecticut, the one that I just referenced, would go on to become the basis for the 1972 decision for unmarried couples to also use birth control.
Literally, if you had parents who were born in like the 50s or 60s, they weren't allowed to use contraceptives outside of marriage until 1972. That's crazy, dog.
On one hand, the sharp rise in popularity of the birth control pill promised greater innovation in the realm of reversible birth control.
Look, it's not funny because she needed to say cum stock, okay? That's my criticism. She didn't say cum stock. It ruins the joke to not say it, and that's cowardly behavior, and you will never see me participating in this cowardly level of humor, okay?
On the whole. Women were already employing methods like condoms and diaphragms, but the creation of the pill spurred the scientific and medical communities to create even more options for women in the form of subdermal implants and improving the IUD, which, if you didn't know, stands for intrauterine device. And it looks like this cute little anchor. Here's a diagram I found.
Wait, okay. If his name was Cumstock, then that is funny. I take back everything I said if his name was Cumstock. If it was just Comstock, then it's not funny.
On the internet. I think there's also a joke to be made here about just how many things us women have put in our bodies, but I'm not gonna go there. But your brain just did. Smut person. On the other hand, it wasn't long before pharmaceutical companies were competing for the top spot, and marketing decisions rather than scientific innovations guided the future of contraceptive products.
That's all medicine. Again, like, if you want to use this to make a criticism of how the profit motive skews medical developments towards profit as opposed to towards things that actually benefit patients, then, like, yeah, this would be a valid argument. But trying to frame this as just an issue that affects hormonal birth control is very weird. Again, you have to understand that the framing of this issue is leaving out certain pieces of information in order to lead you to certain conclusions.
A research paper called How the Pill Became a Lifestyle Drug, the Pharmaceutical Industry and Birth Control in the United States since 1960, outlines how messaging and advancement around and of the pill started to change. From the 1960s to the 1980s, the paper says that pharmaceutical companies advertised birth control pills expressly for the purposes of birth control, which, like, wow, no brainer there. But as the pill grew in popularity, pharmaceutical companies found little incentive for investing in the innovation of new methods, and eventually shifted their marketing of existing contraceptive products away from the function of fertility control. It was the 1990s that brought about the very messaging we see today. And it was here that manufacturers began...
I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm pretty sure the main draw of hormonal contraceptives and contraceptives in general is specifically fertility control. Like, regardless of what the marketing is for, people are using it, undoubtedly, to control whether or not they are viably fertile, if we want to use similar language.
And promoting oral contraceptives as lifestyle drugs. This was a term coined in 1978 that generally describes medications that improve a person's quality of life by treating less serious and sometimes cosmetic conditions. For the pill, new advertising targeted the medication's secondary effects, such as treating acne and
Proud of you,
reducing
Valhalla
the
Vidya.
frequency of menstruation. Big Pharma wanted to emphasize the control of pimples, moods, and period cramps, rather than the control of actual fertility. And this is the very...
Well, that's because the marketing had already been so successful at penetrating their market, inadvertent terminology, apology, that they started marketing it on its other side effects that were less the reason that people were taking it and more just like, oh, hey, yeah, we noticed, being on hormonal birth control gives you less acne. Like that is a new angle to market the product you've been marketing for the past 10, 15, 20 years. Like, that's, again, if you want to criticize this is an issue with for-profit medicine.
Messaging that has stuck around some 30 years later. Cause nobody does messaging quite like Big Pharma. Hey, give your kids Ritalin and fix their inability to sit still in a chair for 8 hours a day. A pimple at 15? Craziness. Take this pill. Simulate pregnancy. Stuck the landing.
Well, the doctors aren't prescribing hormonal birth control to treat acne. There are other things that they prescribe for that. The reason a 15-year-old would be on the pill generally would be to avoid getting pregnant if they are engaging in sexual activity, which, guess what? Like 80% of 15-year-olds are at that time. Like, it's a very high percentage. Sydney Watson, I know her. She's proof the libertarian to fascist pipeline isn't a theory but a fact. Yes. She used to co-host with Elijah Schaefer. It's true. It's true. I would say Elijah Schaefer has transcended white supremacy and sexual abuse to become a neo-Nazi. But that's just me,
Today, you don't have to look very far at all to find women who can attest to being given the pill to deal with acne or mood swings. In fact, a birth control prescription for acne is so common that...
I'm just gonna look up this headline. Here, it's from an article from a place called Beardy. Okay. We're gonna go with the intro and the outro. For some people, acne isn't just a pesky skin issue that appears every so often, it's a chronic condition. Instead of dealing with the occasional breakout or two, the skin is consistently red, inflamed, and sometimes even painful to the touch. It's at this point that many look to birth control as a way to treat and control flare-ups. But just like taking any other prescribed medication, you need to do your research and talk to a doctor before using birth control for acneic skin. That's because not all birth control works the same or provides the same skin clearing results. Interesting. A 2016 Journal of Drugs in Dermatology study found that combination birth control pills, or those that contain versions of both estrogen and progesterone, are generally best at clearing skin, while hormonal injections, implants, and intrauterine devices tend to worsen acne. So, interesting that it literally is saying consult your doctor. Takeaway, while birth control can be an effective treatment for certain types of acne, it is not appropriate for all acneic skin types, nor is it typically the first recommendation for treating acne. If you're struggling with acne, Talk to your doctor about various treatment options and ask if birth control could be your route to clear skin. So again, how strange. How odd that this person would disingenuously cite this article.
Dermatology-focused sites and clinics constantly talk about it and prescribe it for this purpose alone. The same goes.
It's very interesting that the article she showed to like back up her point, very clearly did not back up her point.
For a myriad of other issues that exclusively affect women. For some, the pill is treated like a magic fix, but given what it does inside the body and to the body, it can inadvertently medicalize women for life. Now, given that birth control is one of the first kind of medicalization,
I would maybe hazard, I'm just going out on a limb here, that there's another thing that might inadvertently medicalize someone for life, and that is giving birth to a child. That might actually medicalize someone for life far more often than how many people get medicalized for life. And again, what strange language. You know, we're all going to go to the hospital eventually, you know? But I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that the statistics on that don't back up what she's suggesting here. People die giving birth. True, Zoomy dear. People do die giving birth. A lot of people die giving birth, actually.
That is so widespread and taken for such long periods of time, one would think that the people being prescribed this would understand what it does to their bodies, right? Wrong. What a lot of us don't realize, especially those who are prescribed this medication as young teenagers who don't really understand anything at all, is that
that would probably be alleviated somewhat if you were able to, in many parts of America, go to the doctor to get that prescribed with your parents. However, a lot of teenagers get that prescribed without going with their parents because their parents will hit a bitch for trying to get on hormonal birth control. So the reason they wouldn't is because they don't feel safe going with their parents. And I guarantee you, however, each one of those kids, and you know whether or not they're with their parents, is being explained how that might affect their body. Just for the vast majority of them, not getting pregnant outweighs a lot of the other side effects of the drug.
the way that the pill works is...
It's true, a lot of apples. More people in red states die giving birth. It's true. It's true. I haven't watched a lot of Sydney Watson. Is she a grifter, or does she actually believe this? She actually believes this. At the very beginning of this segment, we showed a post of hers from like a couple years ago where she quoted a certain someone, and that certain someone turns out is Adolf Hitler.
It uses synthetic hormones to mimic pregnancy. Your progesterone level stays elevated, which prevents ovulation. As far as the pill goes, there are many different types with varying amounts of estrogen and progesterone, and that's about the long and short of it without getting, you know, considerably super duper technical, which I'm
also, she works for the Blaze, so she absolutely believes this stuff.
Gonna do because I'll just watch all of you glaze over and lose interest. And just to be clear, especially for the lads who are here but have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about right now,
it's true. Hey men, did you know you're not capable of understanding science? You don't understand science if it applies to women. If it's science for women, then you can't possibly understand it, you dumb buffoons. Apparently, for some reason that is not explained.
The pill cycle works by a woman taking the hormone pills for 3 weeks and the sugar pills for 1. We usually refer to this as our period, but like, the bleeding is from the withdrawal of hormones. If a woman decides to continue taking the hormone pills and not do a week of the sugar pills, then she theoretically won't bleed. I'm prepared to admit that I didn't know for an embarrassingly long period of time that the bleeding that happens when you're taking the sugar pills is not a period. I didn't know that, so why was this never explained to me? Now, with all of that in mind, if you take to social media and listen to the experiences of women, you find that many were placed on an oral contraceptive in their teen years or early 20s for lifestyle reasons.
My positive experience on birth control. I feel like I never hear
Were placed on it for... Again, it's not like they went to the doctor and the doctor was like, hey, let me upsell you on some estrogen, some hormonal birth control. No, they went there seeking the birth control. That's why they went to the doctor in the first place.
Anybody talking about this. That's kind of why I want to talk about it. Also, not a single comment on the rollers. I don't know what I'm doing.
Wait, Salmon Moose, is that true?
I'm just trying
Do
to...
you got a link for that?
Birth control back in August of 2020, and it completely transformed my acne.
So many women, myself included, were prescribed birth control at a very young age without properly being educated on the long-term side effects. I was put on birth control at 15 years old and was on the pill for 10 years.
The trouble is that many of these women don't feel like they were given adequate information.
Wait, really? I mean, I don't know how reputable this site is, Project Ruby. Birth control placebo tablets not medically necessary, created to appease the Pope. This is from 2019. New evidence suggests women can safely take the birth control pill without a 7-day break, and the placebo tablets were really just to appease the Pope. What? History of birth control placebo tablets. John Rock was one of the gynecologists who invented the pill. He also happened to be a devout Catholic. In an effort to appease or please the Catholic Church and gain the Pope's endorsement, he created this 7-day break to simulate a period. Professor John Gillibaud, I butchered that, I'm sure, a contraception expert at University College London, said John Rock proposed the 7-day placebo tablets in the 1950s because he hoped that the Pope would accept the pill and make it acceptable for Catholics to use. In other words, Dr. Rock thought a simulated period would seem more natural and would make birth control an easier pill for the Pope to swallow, pun intended. The sad irony of the situation is Dr. Rock's plan did not work. In the end, the Pope came out strongly against birth control. Despite this, the 7-day break stuck and has been affecting women for the last 60 years. Gillibaud added, how could it be that for 60 years we've been taking the pill in a suboptimal way because of this desire to please the Pope? How could it be that for Yeah, okay. As it turns out, taking birth control continuously can actually be more effective in preventing pregnancy. Why? You're much less likely to miss a pill when restarting a new pack. Huh. Wait. Oh, this is from... Sorry, this is from Newsweek. Okay. Sorry, this is... ignore that it came from Project Ruby. It's from Newsweek in 2019. However, the bleed has no health benefit for the average woman. The Faculty of Sexual and Reproductive Healthcare, an arm of the UK's Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, highlighted on Monday. Huh. Professor John Gillibaud from University College London told this to the Sunday Telegraph. If taken correctly, the pill provides a 99% protection against pregnancy, with around 9% of users conceiving in their first year of use on average. The hiatus could put women at a greater risk of falling pregnant, explained Dr. Diana Mansour, Vice President for Clinical Quality of the Faculty of Sexual and Reproductive Healthcare. The riskiest time to miss pills is at the beginning and the end of a pill-free interval, she said in a statement. The guideline suggests that taking fewer hormone-free intervals or shortening them to 4 days, it is possible that women could reduce the risk of getting pregnant on combined hormonal contraception. Dr. Sarah Hardman, co-director of the Clinical Effectiveness Unit of the Faculty of Sexual and Reproductive Healthcare, highlighted, quote, if a woman wants to avoid periods on combined hormonal contraception, she can run the packets together. We don't need a regular monthly bleed to be healthy, and lots of women welcome the option of avoiding bleeding. But women need to know that there's a small increase in some health risks with combined hormonal contraception, so it isn't suitable for everyone. There's a small risk in experiencing blood clots or breast cancer, which, you know, really seems to, like, adding this quote here really kind of seems to, I don't know, undermine the idea that doctors are just prescribing this willy-nilly without talking about the side effects at all. Cool. I'm gonna keep that one in the back pocket. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Salmon Moose.
Information from their doctors about what they could expect on and off the drug. And while this certainly isn't the case for everyone, there are lots of women actually who attest to the fact that the pill helped them.
Again, also, this is a very common tactic when talking about, you know, and framing certain, especially medical issues from a conservative lens, is you fearmonger about the side effects that affect a very small minority of people. And then while you talk about those side effects, you then point to anecdotal evidence of, like, see, these people on social media experience bad things, as opposed to the 99% of other people who experience really only good aspects of the medication. Yes. I clicked the wrong button.
Them tremendously with symptoms of polycystic ovary syndrome, endometriosis, painful periods, mood disorders, and so on and so forth. Others report that it has impacted them long after they stopped taking it, and honestly, this is something that I can relate to a lot. Without getting into too much detail, this was more or less my experience when I came off of hormonal birth control after taking it for around 8 years. And you know, it is sad to say, but in some ways I've kind of lost hope that some of the body functions and the hormonal functions that I have that were disrupted by taking birth control will ever go back to normal. And I think the even sadder reality there is that I know I'm not alone. It's kind of ironic because in a quest to fix the issues caused by birth control, I ended up going on other medications that just screwed with my hormones further and sort of just ended up in this perpetual loop of trying to fix hormone-related issues with new hormones and just realizing that the entire thing was a circular mess. But it's fun.
Yes. Hormones are magic, but also sometimes they're bad magic. You know, it turns out if you're wonky on your hormones, really awful things can happen to your body. But that doesn't happen in the vast majority of people who take hormonal birth control.
Fine. I'm working it out. You know, did a juice cleanse, hugged my dog, hoped my doctor was out there somewhere getting eaten by a snake. What? Anyway, jokes aside, what I am describing to you here is actually a huge problem. Women are prescribed a drug that is almost viewed, or I imagine it's viewed by some doctors, as an easy, carefree fix to a multitude of other problems. But in saying that, I just wonder how many of us are actually ever walked through the ramifications, both short-term and long-term, for taking this medication.
Did you know that, like, you can just walk in to a Walgreens and buy aspirin? Did you know there are millions of people taking aspirin every day, not knowing that it could actually kill you? That's right. Big Pharma doesn't want you to know that aspirin can also be a rat poison. And you know what? We're all the rats. Bum, 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 be afraid. Like, that's the equivalent of what's happening here. That's the equivalent. The framing is designed to emphasize how scary, how overwhelming these side effects are. And again, the vast majority of people who take hormonal birth control do not experience these debilitating effects.
Few, I would imagine. In 2021, Dr. Michael Lipton, a medical director of MRI.
Why is that name familiar to me? Why is that? I might be having just like war flashbacks because I recognize the last name Lipton. Maybe the Lisa Lipton study for trans healthcare. Okay. I'm gonna say that this is a false alarm. My bad.
Services and professor of radiology, psychiatry, and behavioral sciences.
Oh, Littman. Sorry. Okay, sorry, guys. Sorry.
At Albert Einstein College of Medicine, said in an interview that it was remarkable that we didn't know more about birth control and how it works, despite how widespread and normalized it is. And
you know, given what happened last time, I'm going to take a gander at that quote. It's somewhat remarkable that the pill has been on the market for half a century, but its effects on the brain are poorly studied and not understood. We're gonna search that in quotes. All right. Okay, this is ad blocked. Can't use that one. Okay, this is somewhat interesting. When I search that quote, 3 results, and then a Twitter result. And I guess we'll look through some of the search results that have been omitted. Let's see. Oh, we got reputable outlets like the Virgin Islands Daily News reporting this. The Napa Valley Register. Interesting. And a lot of this seems to be reposted, one single reposted article titled "Birth Control Pill Use is Declining as Women Question." You know, we'll just click on the York Dispatch. Let's see if that site. Okay. Let's see. Lipton. All right. New study presented at the 2019 annual meeting for the Radiological Society of North America. Okay. Here, just interesting here. It's remarkable that the pill has been on the market for half a century, but its effects on the brain are poorly studied and not understood, said Michael Lipton, a neuroradiologist at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York. Lipton studies how oral contraceptives affect the hypothalamus, a region of the brain that is key to controlling body temperature, emotion, sex drive, sleep cycles, and appetite. In a study presented at the 2019 annual meeting of the Radiological Society of North America, Lipton found that women take a combination pill containing both progestin and estrogen have a smaller hypothalamus volume. We haven't shown or proven that the pill causes this, Lipton said, but the finding is significant. However, it's not necessarily harmful or surprising. Interesting. Interesting to include the first part of the quote and not the second part of the quote.
know more about birth control and how it works, despite how widespread and normalized it is. And to be honest with you, the bulk of the research that I looked at while writing this video made mention of this. Repeatedly, researchers would say that more investigation and study must be done to fully understand the effects of these drugs on the female body and brain. Of course, and just to be clear, we know how different contraceptives work, at least on a technical level. And there are several types of hormonal contraceptives on the market that come in pill, patch insertable, and injection form. The IUD, which contains copper, is a non-hormonal option. In 2019, Lipton and his team reported on research they'd conducted that found women taking a combination pill containing both progestin and estrogen had significantly smaller hypothalamus volume compared to women not taking these pills.
Oh, interesting. Wait a minute. No, a study didn't find that birth control pills shrink people's brains. Thank you, Vice. Even the author of the study said headlines about it were a leap. Oh, very interesting. Interesting. When a researcher presented his latest findings on the effects of birth control pills on the brain at a conference, a somewhat predictable chain of events followed. Though Michael Lipton, the study's author, emphasized that his research had only established an association between the size of the hypothalamus and oral contraceptive use, rather than a definitive cause and effect relationship, within days several outlets had run stories claiming that birth control could shrink parts of the brain. Lipton doesn't usually study birth control, he's a neuroscientist. But when he discovered a significant difference in the way women and men respond to traumatic brain injuries, he went to investigate how sex hormones affect the brain. For the study, Lipton recruited 50 women, 21 of whom were already taking oral contraceptives. After giving them all MRIs of the brain, he measured their hypothalamuses, a brain region that helps regulate hormones, and found that the women had been taking birth control pills had significantly smaller hypothalamuses than those who didn't. Still, in order to establish that taking oral contraceptives causes the hypothalamus to lose volume, Lipton would have to conduct additional studies with people who hadn't used oral contraceptives before, assess their hypothalamus volume, have them take the pills, and then assess their hypothalamuses again before reaching any conclusions. Quote, "We haven't demonstrated that this is clearly a causal relationship, and to do that would require a very different study," said Lipton, who's also the director of radiology research at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York City. It's a leap to say birth control shrinks your brain. Interesting. Some might feel panic at seeing a headline about their brains shrinking, but the study found no correlation between hypothalamus size and cognitive performance, and while it did find that having a smaller hypothalamus can be associated with feelings of depression and anger, Lipton did not determine that birth control caused either of those things. Interesting.
The thalamus produces hormones and helps to regulate essential bodily functions like body temperature, mood, appetite, sex drive, sleep, and heart rate. In his own words, Dr. Lipton said, "We have found a dramatic difference in the size of the brain structures between women who were taking oral contraceptives and those who were not." He added that the team hasn't shown or proven definitively that the pill causes this, but the finding is still significant.
And yet, later on, he would describe the coverage of his research as a leap. And you're kind of ignoring the corrections and comments he made after his presentation went viral among conservatives, largely, which is very interesting, Sydney Watson.
Lipton also found that smaller hypothalamus volume was associated with feelings of anger and depressive symptoms, but stressed that this finding was preliminary. Other researchers and professors have arrived at similar conclusions, especially with regard to the effects of the pill on the brain. Dr. Sarah Hill, who I mentioned earlier, has covered this matter in great detail. Actually, I didn't realize this, but I own her book. I didn't make the connection between that, but here we are. During her 2019 TED Talk, Dr. Hill explains that the hormonal profile of the birth control pill is essentially sexual anti-venom, meaning the pill's makeup significantly affects women's libido.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true.
Who are on the birth control pill exhibit decreased sexual desire and decreased sexual functioning relative to their naturally cycling counterparts. And the reason for this has everything to do with the hormonal profile that's created by the birth control pill. The hormones that facilitate the sexual response in women and facilitate sexual desire are relatively high levels of estrogen and testosterone and lower levels of progesterone, right? Progesterone actually inhibits women's sexual desire. And the sex hormone profile on the birth control pill is essentially sexual antivenom, right? It's high levels of progesterone, a sexual inhibitor, right? And relatively low levels of...
Okay, I literally take progesterone. I have not experienced that progesterone is a sexual inhibitor.
estrogen and testosterone. And indeed, there's a lot of research indicating that women tend to have diminished libido on the birth control pill.
Which is kind of ironic when you consider the fact that a large portion of women are taking birth control for the purposes of preventing pregnancy, and yet they don't want to have sex, which sort of feels like it defeats the purpose. Although if
I don't know. Let's just say I've known a lot of women in my life who have taken or do take hormonal birth control. It did not make them want to go to Bone Town any less.
If I'm thinking about it critically, I guess not. Because if she doesn't want to have sex, then she can't get pregnant. Science. Dr. Hill goes on to add that a woman's level of estrogen determines how much testosterone she wants in her partner.
Right, and this is also something that's influenced by the levels of sex hormones that are created by the birth control pill. Right, so we know now from decades of research that women's own levels of estrogen predict the amount of testosterone that they prefer in their partners. In other words, the sex hormone estrogen increases women's attunement to cues that have historically been linked to testosterone.
Question, and feel free to not answer. Has hormonal birth control negatively affected your libido? Fair. I'll take the L on that one.
Testosterone levels in men. This graph that you're looking at here is showing how women's own levels of estrogen predict testosterone preference. And what you can see from this is that estrogen loves testosterone. Right? So women, when they have relatively high levels of estrogen, are really cued into facial cues that are associated with masculinity, and this changes their preferences over the course of the cycle. Now, given that the birth control pill keeps levels of estrogen very low, we can make the prediction that women who are on the birth control pill should prefer as partners men who have fewer cues associated with testosterone preference. Right? And that's exactly what we find. So research finds now that women who are on the birth control pill prefer partners with less masculine faces than do their naturally cycling peers. And this is something that is found both when women are identifying men that they would like to have as short-term sexual partners, and also the people that they'd like to have as long-term romantic partners. Right? The research has also found that pill-taking women are actually choosing as partners men with less masculine faces relative to naturally cycling women. So they've done studies where they've brought in the partners of women who chose their partner, whether they were on or off of the birth control pill, took photographs of their faces, created facial composites, and they were able to actually look at the proportion of testosterone markers on the faces of men. And they found out that the pill-taking women...
Okay. The testosterone features? This sounds like bullshit. Also, I don't want to get copyright struck for showing TED Talks.
Women, indeed, were choosing as partners men with fewer testosterone.
Well, Dr. Sarah Hill is an evolutionary psychologist, and let's just say things aren't going super well in the evolutionary psychology field at the moment.
Testosterone markers in their faces. Right, so the birth control pill might be changing the face of mate preferences.
Funnily enough, and once again on a personal level, when I...
True, high levels of progesterone do inhibit libido. But they have to be high levels. And, I take quite a bit of progesterone. It does not inhibit my libido. So it has to be an even higher amount than what I take, generally.
I was doing research to come off of birth control. I read a whole heap of stuff that said that it messes with...
Yeah, literally I take a dosage of progesterone that's 6 times higher? Yeah.
With pheromones and all sorts of things related to attraction. It actually reminds me of this opinion piece that I read recently that said that if you're not attracted to the way that your man smells, including his sweat, then he's maybe not the guy for you. But on a serious note, have you ever smelled men? A man? Like, any place that men typically congregate together, sometimes without clothes on, like in a locker room. I don't know what you're doing in there, but I don't like the smell of it. It's why...
Why is she smelling men's locker rooms? Why are transphobes so fucking weird about locker rooms? Why? What? Why? Why are you obsessed with naked, places where naked men congregate? Look, we don't kink shame here. I'm just saying, it's weird. This is a weird tangent. This is weirder than what I said go to Bone Town, so I feel justified in regaining the high ground here.
Why we insist on getting you cologne at any gift-giving occasion.
This is one study of many that looked at this phenomenon. It focused specifically on masculine facial features. Without hormonal birth control, women are attracted to men with different smells. Yep, you got it, pheromones. These are associated with masculine features and higher testosterone levels. And on hormonal birth control, they're attracted to men that are more similar to them, with lower testosterone levels.
Who is this? Who? Can we get like a citation from who this is? Also, I guess I'll look up this study because I cannot take this person at their word. Use in women changes preferences for male facial masculinity. Let's see. Let's see. I can't see the full study. I can just see the abstract. Let's see. Give. Okay, interesting. Oh. Huh. So, one thing you'll note about this study is that it was published in 2013. You'll notice that. And you might ask yourself, wow, that study was 10 years ago. I wonder if there's anything more recent than that. And the answer is actually yes. And you might say, huh, I wonder if the study that's more recent also includes, a couple of the people who worked on this particular study that's being cited. I wonder if that's the case. And oh, would you look at that? It is indeed. No evidence that women using oral contraceptives have weaker preferences for masculine characteristics in men's faces. Published in 2019. And, oh, would you look at that? Anthony C. Little and Benedict C. Jones, 2 people who worked on this study. That's so interesting. It's interesting that she chose to go with a 10-year-old study that backs up her conclusion versus a 2019 study made by multiple of the same authors of the one she cited, showing that kind of bullshit maybe. Kind of bullshit maybe. Kind of bullshit maybe. to read their conclusion, we found no evidence that women using oral contraceptives, after looking at 6,482 heterosexual women, had weaker preferences for male facial masculinity than did women not using oral contraceptives. These findings add to a growing literature suggesting that links between reproductive hormones and preferences are more limited than previously proposed. Huh. Interesting.
More feminine features, and they're typically regarded as caretakers. There are more studies that also show that taking birth control changes which men you attract as well.
The last thing that I want to make note of here is that Dr. Hill said that there is a correlation between the effect of the birth control pill and cortisol levels. She says that women who are taking this medication exhibit a blunted or absent cortisol response to stress. Cortisol, as Dr. Hill explains, is part of the way that the body copes with stress.
But cortisol isn't what causes stress. Life is what causes stress. Right? Cortisol is actually part of the way that our body helps cope with stress. It dumps fat and sugar into our bloodstream so we can make a fast getaway, and it primes our brain for learning and memory, so that way if we encounter a similar situation in the future, we'll be better able to cope with it. Right? And because of this, when we're feeling stressed out, our body releases cortisol, unless you're on the birth control pill. So there's several decades of research now that shows that women who are on the birth control pill exhibit a blunted or altogether absent cortisol response to stress. Right? And this is something that's potentially really important, not only because this is a type of profile that we tend to see in people who've undergone trauma or have PTSD, but also because it can cause structural changes in the brain, decrease people's ability to cope with stress, cause problems with emotional regulation, and impair learning and memory. And there's some research now coming out about the birth control pill in each one of these processes that suggests that we might be seeing just these patterns in women who are on the birth control pill.
So to summarize all of this, what Dr. Hill...
Anyway, also, long-term exposure to cortisol and other stress hormones can negatively affect almost all of your body's processes, can increase your risk of health issues such as heart disease, lung issues, obesity, anxiety, depression, and more. Anyway...
is essentially saying is that the birth control pill affects the overall functioning of a woman's brain. It impacts who she views as a potential partner, it dramatically affects her libido, and it wholly affects cortisol in her body, leading to symptoms that look like PTSD, creating structural changes in the brain, and impairing emotional responses, learning, and memory. Society chalks a lot of this up to women being crazy, or emotional, or even just generally unhinged. But it seems few people, few women more importantly, stop to think that the issues they face every day, be it weight gain, moodiness, irritability, brain fog, are the result of a little pill that they take every day. So
doctors would absolutely suggest that as a contributor to things like depression and anxiety. I know that because I've talked to doctors and I'm on hormone medication.
We're not crazy, we're just medicated, so that men can have casual sex with us. Oh, that joke felt a little bitter. Join us. On a serious note...
What the fuck?
One of the biggest things that I noticed when I was coming off the pill was the brain fog lifting, for lack of a better way of describing it. It was like I could finally think again clearly, and while I was on the pill, I was perpetually mad. Nowadays, I'm only mad when I get sat on by fat people on airplanes, or shouted at by literal feminists. Now, while perusing the old social media, I noticed that there was a lot of discussion, particularly on YouTube and TikTok, about birth control. And I noticed again and again videos where young women made the connection between being happy pre-birth control and emotionally unstable while taking the medication. And as crazy as that might sound on the surface, this experience actually makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, several studies have positively associated self-deletion with hormonal contraception.
Interesting, really? Association of hormonal contraception with interesting. Let's see. Oh, interesting. It appears that this is actually a highly controversial study, with multiple comments published, as well as clarifying the methods of accumulating data. So let's just take a look real quick. The authors assessed associations between a hormonal contraceptive use and suicide attempt and suicide in a nationwide prospective cohort study of all women in Denmark who had no psychiatric diagnoses, antidepressant use, or hormonal contraceptive use before age 15, and who turned 15 during the study period, which extended from 1996 through 2013. Nationwide registered provided individually updated information about the use of hormonal contraception, suicide attempt, suicide, and potential confounding variables. Psychiatric diagnoses or antidepressant use during the study period were considered potential mediators between hormonal contraceptive use and risk of suicide attempt. Adjusted hazard ratios for suicide attempt and suicide were estimated for users of hormonal contraception as compared with those who never used hormonal contraception. So, I just have to point out that, well, let's take a look at the results real quick. Among nearly 500,000 women followed for an average of 8.3 years, with a mean of 21 years, found 6,999 first suicide attempts and 71 suicides were identified. Compared with women who had never used hormonal contraceptives, the relative risk among current and recent users was 1.97 for suicide attempt and 3.08 for suicide. Risk estimates for suicide attempts were 1.91, for oral combined products 2.29. The association between hormonal contraceptive use and a first suicide attempt peaked after 2 months of use. Again, it's interesting that you need to pay attention to the language here. Remember that previous study that we went over? Association. There's an association. An association is not a cause and effect relationship. It's not saying, "Oh, you take this, you die." You know, it's not like the videotape from The Ring or whatever. Yes, the argument that is being made by Sydney Watson in this video is essentially that, hormonal contraceptives shrink your brain, cause massive mental health problems, and can potentially kill you. That is the argument she's making. To be honest, my body does not like birth control. I've been better with the IUD, but when I was on the pill, my body was like, hell nah. And you know what? That's fine. That is totally fine. The issue is conservatives want to use the fact that there are some people who experience negative side effects for all forms of contraception. Every form of contraception has side effects. They want to use that as a pretext to get rid of these methods and interventions.
With adolescent women
But yes, association is not causation, and we've been over that even earlier in this. And again, there would need to be massive amounts of follow-up studies on this, and from what I can see, this is fairly controversial. So I'm not gonna say that this study is bullshit, but I am gonna say that by and large, it is by no means conclusive at all.
Experiencing the highest relative risk. On a similar note, especially in young adolescents, it has been linked to the subsequent use of medication for depression and a first diagnosis of depression.
But when we're talking about young girls as 19 and younger, you still have a lot of brain development that's going on. And when you are experiencing post-pubertal brain development, all of that remodeling that goes on after puberty is something that's coordinated by your sex hormones. The research that has been done is beginning to point fingers at a possible link between adolescent birth control pill use and then a greater risk of developing major depressive disorder across your lifetime, even after you're off of hormonal birth control. And that's pretty scary.
One study of over 1 million Danish women concluded that depression is a potential adverse effect of hormonal contraceptive use. But it should be noted that others have attempted to discredit parts of this study by suggesting that it does not account for life changes, making it hard to know whether it is actually hormonal birth control driving that depressive.
Yes, that is what a study saying an association means, as opposed to a cause and effect relationship.
Risk. So there's that. The reality here is that one pill, innocently taken to deal with acne, may inadvertently lead.
Oh, okay, again, the link that, or the evidence you use that doctors were willy-nilly prescribing hormonal birth control for acne did not show that.
Lead to another pill to deal with worsening depression. And the woman, the patient, has absolutely no idea how these two things are related. And this just feels like the entire business model of Big Pharma. Another thing I noticed on social media is that some female doctors and naturopathic practitioners have started getting very vocal about the various vitamins that the pill depletes in the body. They claim that these are the same vitamins which coincide with symptoms of depression and other emotional issues.
Girls who are on the pill, please listen. Okay, so my nutrition professor just taught us that if you're on the pill, it depletes all of your body's natural B vitamins, which causes symptoms of depression, fatigue, and all these other things.
Should you listen to a doctor or this random person on TikTok? I wonder. I wonder.
Like so, and basically your medical doctor is supposed to recommend that you take a B complex vitamin, but they never do.
So with all of that said, I think it is important once again to note that the negative symptoms of taking the pill are no joke. A 2019 article expressed that the use of the birth control pill is declining as women question its mental health side effects. It outlines a 2013 study where almost 63% of women reported they stopped taking the pill because of its side effects. Side effects which, just by the way, caused a hormonal birth control trial for men to be shelved. Yep.
Male birth control study killed after men report side effects. I vaguely remember this. Oh wow! This one's a two-parter, chat. Keep in mind this video came out in 2023. This is from 2016. Oh wow. Let's see. For years, people have tried to create birth control for men. Let's see. How did this latest study work? Pretty large study. They gave shots to 320 men every 8 weeks in different countries around the world. The shot contained 2 hormones. And it worked pretty well. It knocked down their sperm counts significantly, and they were only a handful of pregnancies among partners of men in the trial, but 2 committees were paying attention to the study, and they realized that a lot of guys were dropping out because they were experiencing side effects. The most common side effect was acne, and sometimes that acne was pretty severe. Some men also developed mood swings, and in some cases those mood swings got pretty bad. One man developed severe depression, another tried to commit suicide. Because of that, they cut the study short. Now, you might be like, well, that's pretty bad. I wonder if they've, I don't know, made any progress since 2016. You know, they shut this study down, so there's no update. Clear. Oh wait, nope. Here's from 2022. After decades of setbacks, scientists make strides toward the holy grail of male birth control. Damn, that's crazy. Oh, the headline spelled the end of a short-lived scientific hope. Male birth control study nixed after men can't handle side effects women face daily. USA Today announced. Men back out of male birth control study because they couldn't handle the changes in mood, proclaimed People magazine. It's high-profile, highly embarrassing, an end to clinical trial that researchers hoped would usher in a new era of birth control. But the headlines obscured more complicated truths about the hard work of developing male contraceptives and running clinical trials to assess their effectiveness. Years later, the field is still navigating the fallout. And I can't read farther into this, but I want you all to know that basically this slew of headlines from this one study had a lot of people being like, oh, damn, it's never going to be possible. But it turns out science continues to move forward all the time. And, hey, we're getting closer to viable male birth control. Look, guys, it makes sense that in a study of 320 people, if one of them tries to commit suicide due to what is determined to be side effects, that they shut down the study. It's not men being weak, okay?
In 2016, the male version of hormonal birth control shots were stopped after trial subjects reported less severe symptoms of the test drug. These are many of the same symptoms women have been coping with since the 1960s. These side effects include acne, mood swings, one man developed severe depression, and another one tried to self-delete. And because of this, they cut the study short. By comparison, women began reporting a sharp increase in severe medical conditions within 2 years of the original pill being released, and have continued to report these side effects without any real concern from manufacturers, doctors, or even the general medical community. Some studies have connected the pill to a 20% increase in breast cancer risk, and just to be clear here, there's studies that...
Yeah, that 20% increase in breast cancer risk. Contraception. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Any type of hormonal contraceptive may increase risk of breast cancer. This is from 2023 of this year, so at least it's recent. Let's see. Researchers analyzed data from 9,498 women who developed invasive breast cancer between the ages of 20 and 49, and 18,171 closely matched women without breast cancer who acted as controls. Data were collected. Let's see. Key findings in the CPRD data: significant increase in risk of breast cancer associated with hormonal contraceptive use, regardless of whether the contraceptive last prescribed was a combined oral or progesterone-only oral preparation, an injected progesterone, or a progesterone-releasing intrauterine device. In the CPRD data, the increased risk of breast cancer associated with oral contraceptive use declined after stopping use. When the findings for progesterone... Is there, like, a breakdown of this? That seems interesting, to say the least. There's a big study done in 1996 shows a transient risk existed, declined after women stopped taking it. In that paper, a meta-analysis of 54 other studies, women had about a 25% increased risk of breast cancer while they were on the pill compared to people who had not taken the pill. That amount to a rather slight absolute increase of roughly 0.15% for women under the age of 40 and 0.5% for women under the age of 50. The risk diminished the longer the women were off the contraceptive, fading away entirely after about 10 years. So, again, while that sounds like a big increase, it increases a very small rate, you know? Again, that is an increase to, let's see, rate increase roughly of 0.15%. So, Yeah, a lot of this is scare tactics. And it's the difference between, you know, one out of 1,000 people getting it. I don't necessarily know that this is the silver bullet that ends contraceptive access. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so the Reeves study more recently, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Not taking birth control will also increase your risk of breast cancer if you get pregnant, because pregnancy is hormone palooza. Additionally here, so with the Reeves study here, they found that, quote, that was a combined oral progesterone only injection, IUD, whatever. In absolute terms, also, as in past studies, that translates to about an absolute increase of about 0.5% for women under the age of 50. So, again, basically, if you're taking hormonal contraceptives, to put this in like direct terms, if you're taking hormonal contraceptives, from now until you know have your menopause, right? You have 0.5% more of a chance of getting breast cancer if you are on hormonal contraceptives. So that's numbers a lot of people are going to be okay with, frankly. But when you frame it as, oh, a 20 to 30% increase, well, that sounds scary, doesn't it?
Do not make that correlation, but I wanted to make note of both anyway. The pill has also been connected to a dramatic increase in blood clot risk, stroke risk.
Literally, this is a quote from Reeves. We're talking about a risk that acts on women in their 20s and 30s when we have a very low background risk. So 20 to 30% of something that's very small is still very small. So the modern, newer forms of hormonal contraceptives behave pretty much the same as we've been using for decades.
Lupus, and as I mentioned, depression and self-deletion. And yet, women are still prescribed this without issue, and women are still expected to take it, or else they are deemed sexually irresponsible. Now,
again, I have never seen anyone saying that if you aren't using hormonal contraceptives that you are sexually irresponsible. I've literally never seen anyone, left or right, make that claim. I've never seen that happen. Who says that? Exactly. Who?
Now, on that very positive, happy note, I want to round things off with a few final thoughts. Firstly, as much as I am very critical of the medical industry when it comes to this particular topic, I do want to stress and highlight that personal responsibility is a thing and will always be a thing. When you take a medication, especially as an adult, it is up to you in large parts to educate yourself about the potential effects of that medication. Obviously, when it comes to this issue, it's a little more complicated because the information that we have discussed even in this video is quite hard to come by, and as these researchers...
It's literally not. You guys saw me Google this in real time. It is not hard to find this information.
Doctors and professors and whatnot have explained already, there is very little information and very little research that...
There's plenty of research and information at your fingertips. You literally just need to Google birth control side effects. That's literally it. again, the conservative tendency to act like Googling something is impossible is baffling to me.
It's been done into the pill itself. So I come back to just generally being very critical of the medical community. Secondly, and I want to be very clear about this, I am all about choice, and I have no inherent problem with individuals using birth control and taking it upon themselves to determine what works best for them. What I do have a problem with, on the other hand, is this accelerating trend of inadvertently creating lifelong big pharma customers by getting—
See, again, this is what I'm talking about. Throughout this entire video, she's like, now I have no problem with people making their own choices, but I have a problem with the big pharma industry pushing it on vulnerable children. And it's just like, hey, this isn't about big pharma pushing this on kids. I'm going to reframe this entire video for you guys. This video is made specifically to carry water for people and politicians specifically to ban contraceptives. The entire point of this video is to push how scary and use deceptive framing of different studies or cherry-picking studies to show how scary and dangerous contraceptives are, in order to make the case for rolling back contraceptive rights. And we'll add a little cherry on top at the very end of this video, okay?
Getting people hooked on lifestyle drugs when we don't have any comprehension of the long-term effects of those drugs.
We've literally been studying the effects of these drugs for like 73 years.
And you can apply that to all sorts of things, whether it be these new transgender treatments and surgeries, or even this new—
They're not that new. They've again, transgender surgeries were happening like 70 years ago. Estrogen was being injected into trans women like in the 1950s or 60s. Like, again, these aren't new things.
new wave of weight loss injections that seem to be all the rage right now. Birth control can be great for some people. And like I mentioned previously, it does help with some conditions in some people, like polycystic ovary syndrome, endometriosis, mood disorders, and even acne. But for others, me included, the permanent changes that it has made to our bodies has led to lifelong issues, more medications, and very few resources to understand what happened. In the end, all I'm saying is that when it comes to big pharma, I think we need to be considerably more cognizant of the fact that we don't know everything, but neither do they. Now, before I open the floor to all of you, this is—
Yes. We are on exactly the same terms as people who have spent their entire lives and careers studying this particular medical issue. You, a random dipshit, are on equal terms with an expert in their field. Indeed.
This is just a reminder to check out Foom using the link in the description when you—
Speaking of, have you guys considered inhaling oil into your lungs? Sorry, flavors?
You can check out their 3 brand new flavors which smell and taste pretty dang great, and you can get a discount using my code Sydney. Now, open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are you a woman who has been on birth control and can totally relate to what I am saying here? Are you someone who has had actually a really positive experience and a lot of this to you is totally foreign? Are you on the fence about the whole issue? Or are you somebody who's never taken it because you thought that it would lead to a lot of this? What do you make of the big pharma element to all of this? The lack of—
sorry, just real quick. Speaking of, since, she's really big into looking up studies and such, here's a study from 2022, Alternative Flavored Inhalable Products, a New Respiratory Hazard. A new category of inhalable devices, inhaled essential oils, e.g. fume and monk, have emerged, which appear to capture users interested in flavored inhalable products like e-cigarettes, but do not contain nicotine or tobacco. Many of these products utilize health-oriented language, e.g. organic or natural, to describe these products. Packaging and promotional materials using health-oriented language can influence users' perceptions of harm associated with products, and using this language can increase product appeal. This is potentially problematic and concerning from a public health view, as these products have not undergone toxicity or clinical effectiveness evaluation. Let's let's take a look real quick down here. There's broad literature suggesting that flavoring compounds like black pepper, cinnamon, vanilla, lemon, lime, mint, fir, pine, and eucalyptus contribute to airway toxicity, specifically impairing respiratory immune cell function, cytotoxicity, and increases in oxidative stress. Furthermore, room-diffused essential oils, including lavender, eucalyptus, and tea tree, have also been previously found to release known hazardous chemicals such as terpenes, toluene, and benzene, which can cause respiratory symptoms including breathlessness and respiratory hyper-responsiveness in people with or without asthma. Lavender and tree oils may also act as endocrine disrupting compounds, disrupting hormonal homeostasis. Man, for someone who just made a 30-minute long video about, the importance of keeping your hormones in check and your hormones at their natural levels. Pretty weird to be selling a product to your audience that can, and does, even when not directly inhaled, disrupt hormonal homeostasis. Your body's functioning hormonal levels. And again, that was a study on the effects of just a room diffuser as opposed to directly inhaling it into your body. Crazy. I know. Crazy. Crazy stuff. Anyway, I want to make it clear that, again, this is directly carrying the water, and is deliberately doing so, by the way. You don't have someone who works for The Blaze, someone who formerly was a co-host on a podcast with a neo-Nazi. You don't have someone like that talking about the genuine concern they have for women. They have an agenda. That's their job. Their job is to have an agenda. And just real quick, we're gonna play this clip from MSNBC.
When the Supreme Court ended the constitutional right to an abortion last year, the headlines were stark. States were now free to ban abortion, and the whole country was about to undergo a seismic shift in terms of basic freedoms. But there were additional headlines around that time that were worth paying attention to, because the fallout from that Supreme Court decision did not stop with abortion. Here's the NBC News headline from that time. Justice Clarence Thomas wants the Supreme Court to overturn landmark rulings that legalize contraception and same-sex marriage.
Yep. Just want to pause on that screen for a moment. The entire point of this conservative movement right now, this low-key rumbling against contraceptives and contraception, is deliberately to cater to the fact that the current Supreme Court has conservatives on it who are willing and able to, should the right case appear, overturn your right to contraception. There are state-level battles right now in places like North Carolina and Wisconsin where state-level conservatives are trying to do the same thing in their local areas. And by the way, if this is something that you are feeling strongly about, if this is something that you currently feel powerless about and you want to do something about it, there's a command I put into chat, !protect, where you can go to a website, www.protectcontraceptives.com, where you can sign up to be a volunteer to do opposition research, to research these conservative movements, to learn more about them, and to help compile information on what exactly is going on. Because, to be honest with you, remember, I started out this entire segment talking about how when it comes to contraceptives and contraception access, 90% of Americans across the political spectrum believe that they should have the right to contraception. That is a deeply held belief across political lines. What is happening right now with efforts to outlaw contraception is a deliberate and concerted attack by moneyed interests against your civil rights. So, the entire premise and point of going through with debunking this Sydney Watson video was to point out to you how insidious and subtle some of this messaging is. They're coming out, they're putting these videos in place, they're planting these ideas into the conservative mind to try and build up enough support so that when the time comes for them to bring a case before the Supreme Court, enough conservatives will be willing to shrug and say, well, I heard it was pretty dangerous. So if you want to help stop that happen, again, head over to protectcontraceptives.com. You will be able to sign up to volunteer with Progressive Victory, which is an organization I've worked with a number of times in the past on maintaining the state Supreme Court in Wisconsin, on getting people out to vote in the elections during the midterms. We have worked with them for a long, long time. And they do really good work. If you want to be able to learn new skills for organizing people for political causes, if you want to be able to use your nerdy little research brain to be able to contribute to the information war, because keep in mind, what Sydney Watson is putting out, what many conservatives are putting out, is a deliberate misframing of contraception. So if you would like to push back against that, if you would like to help compile a resource that will be useful for everybody to learn about contraception and to learn about the current political battle on contraception, please, again, head on over to protectcontraceptives.com. And yes, that's my pitch. We can do this. We can beat them. They are not popular. They know it. And that's why their videos have to have this veneer of credibility. So, let's get to work.